Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar on leveraging Oracle Hyperion Profitability and Cost Management in your Hyperion environment. My name is Brian Decker. I'm one of the account executives here at Key Performance Ideas. This is not a sales presentation, but I would like to give you a little bit of background on KPI before we jump into our presentation. So we're a consulting firm that specializes in the Oracle EPM suite, which everybody knows as Hyperion. It's all we do, and we're experts at it. We're a certified Oracle Gold partner, and we're also an Oracle Consulting Services certified partner, which just means that they use our people when they need them. So we subcontract under them occasionally. All of our consultants are Hyperion certified. For example, Cullen, who's going to be doing the presentation, he's Hyperion certified. What you'll notice that's a little different from us than our competitors is that our consultants have a blended background of finance and technology. And to you, this means that these folks have come out of the finance world and then started getting into the Hyperion and become Hyperion consultants. So they have that finance background, and it brings extra value to our customers when we're doing our implementations. As you can see from our next slide is the client list. We handle all different kinds of organizations. We have some really large organizations on there, and we have some small customers as well. So, our projects range from large to small. And one last thing that I would like to point out before we get into our presentation that I think is a big differentiator for us is our SMART program. So we're a consulting organization. We have consultants that do projects, but we have this SMART program, which is System Maintenance and Remote Troubleshooting, and it's remote administration services basically for your Hyperion environment. And just a couple of bullet points on it. I mean, all of those people are Hyperion certified. We sign our customers up on a quarterly basis, depending on how many hours they think they need. And we do the Hyperion administration for them, or we augment their staff if they have a single administrator. We get rid of that single point of failure. If an administrator leaves, we can take over the system for them while they hire a new administrator. So that's our SMART program. All of those folks are U.S.-based resources, and like I mentioned, that program is a quarterly program. So you sign up for a quarter, we administer your Hyperion stuff for a quarter, and then at the end of the quarter, you decide if you would like to sign up again for another quarter. So it's nothing that we lock you into for years at a time. If anyone wants any more information on that SMART program, you can definitely let me know, or anybody on this call know. Our information is at the end of this. So you'll see my contact information, and also Cullen Caballero, his contact is at the end. If you have any questions during this webinar, please submit them via the chat function, and Cullen, he will address questions at the end. So now I'd like to turn it over to Cullen Caballero and get started with the webinar. I appreciate everybody attending. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your schedules and joining our next topic in the Key Performance Ideas webinar series. My name is Cullen Caballero, and I'll be navigating us through today's topic, which is identify your true cost and profit drivers with HPCM, Oracle's new product on profitability management. The goal of today's topic basically is to have a conversation, a bit of education, socialize, and provide a solution to one of the most important, I think, components of management analysis, and that's looking into your costs and diving into what it means and how I can optimize it, how I can move it around and have it on time and accurate. From there, I can negotiate my profit margins, move that around, and optimize it. Our agenda today, we're going to go through some simple topics here. We're going to present a business case of why we need profitability management, why it's important, why an integrated solution is optimal for your business and in the industry. What is HPCM? So we will define it from a packaging standpoint, from a modular standpoint, also focused on who uses it. You in the driver's seat will be focusing on the user, not necessarily an IT organization. The integration from that standpoint against the tools that you already have in-house. We'll go through the analysis of the tool, basically the deep dive into the tool, driver management, model validations and what that means, what this tool can offer from a error checking or troubleshooting standpoint, and also traceability, meaning today I need to look into how I was allocated my cost and where did it come from and why do I have it from an administrative standpoint and a user standpoint. And then as Brian mentioned, we'll follow up with a question and answer section. From there, we'll move on. So to ask a question, I just want to get some logistical things out of the way. You can go to viewing Cullen Caballero's desktop, and there'll be a chat box there, and it'll be available when you select it, and just go ahead and send your question into the host. You can send me questions throughout the presentation. Totally want you to send some questions through so that we can answer it at the tail end of today's session. So let's dive on in. I want to read off a quote, discovering and understanding and applying the drivers of cost and profitability is the value of a profitability management system. It is the value of doing those allocations in the first place from the perspective of profitability and cost management. So today, your company possibly, if you do not have an integrated tool, you probably have a very tedious process. And what we've seen in other companies today, that model in an integrated system is unfortunately in Excel. So your Excel-based model today, you have probably your administrators have a single large model that they then send out to the user base or the plants or the cost centers. They enter their data from their local models. They submit it back through, and you reallocate those values back, and you report that into an executive deck. From a profitability standpoint, this is important. From a process standpoint, it's important to answer the questions that come along with what is the cost allocation, what is the cost allocation, the profitability and analytics, and then, of course, the management of that profit. So here are some questions just to read through. We want to answer the questions here throughout this presentation. Some of these may jog your memory from an ease standpoint, also from a painful standpoint of your current process. Customizing drivers are important. Defining drivers are important. The business rules that you currently have defined in Excel or in the technology Essbase or any other systems that are basically directed toward certain parts of profitability, but not an all-encompassing solution. So how do you do that today? How do you trace back your allocation logic? How do you trace back your drivers from the standpoint of picking that driver up and maybe applying it to a different segment in your business? If you are in Excel, if you are in a specific tool, not an all-encompassing tool, that is very difficult. What HPCM provides is an ability to not only manage it, analyze it, and also make modifications to it. It also allows the user to drive those and the user to push those out rather than receiving those in. Some other questions just to come from a business standpoint. We really like to know if you're profitable or not. It is an important topic from an executive level, from a C-level management. If you can provide value from your desk, if you can provide value from a tool to say that you are profitable or not profitable, you can now give that detail. You now have that visibility into that detail to present in the reporting deck. So the impacts on the customer, the impacts, and that customer being the cost center, or the impact on the consumption, we need to get after this, and we need a tool to get to these answers. So standard processing. Today we have a basic stream of data collection. We need to get the data from the users. We need to provide allocations and apply logic to those cost pools, as I'll call them, and then what comes out of there are fully allocated results. So once those results come back, we need to do some analysis on them. We need to have reporting available to do the analysis. We need to correct errors. We need to send the Excel models back out, or send those results back out to those plants or those cost centers. And then from there, once we get everything right and we have tie-out and we have reconciliation, then we can go to decision support and finally update the final plans. I want to talk specifically around 3 different areas that HPCM covers, and as opposed to the rest of the market. Today in the profitability market, there are a lot of other tools that do part of these 3, but not all. The first one is allocations management, so it's translating your financial data into business activities if you have an activity-based model. The problem with Excel-based, you have a manual process around this management cycle. It's very error-prone. It's time-consuming, which means it's costly from a resource standpoint and also from a process standpoint. Cost management, managing your cost, upping the value of your tools, upping the value to that bottom number that's going to be presented from a management standpoint. So what happens today, it's very hard to dive back in and easily link the activities to the processes. They're sitting on local desktop models. It's difficult to implement the rules, and if we need to calculate activities, the manual process becomes very tedious. Finally, decision support. So who understands the cost drivers? I'm sure if you're an admin today, you get a lot of questions from your users about them not understanding their allocations. Calculating them accurately is important, getting that timely information, and then finally the reporting and analysis side. We have a really big problem, a really big gap in the industry of really providing this decision making in a timely manner, an organized manner, and also one that's actually usable. So let's go ahead and answer the question. What is HPCM? I tell you here, there's good news. HPCM is an integrated system for profitability reporting, profitability analysis, also profitability management. And what it will do, and you will see, is it basically drives the next level of value creation, competitive advantage for your company. So when I mean package profitability module, what's a bit different in the HPCM tool is that it's actually deployed as a user interface, and there's a concept of having a model. So you as an admin will be administering your model, taking the drivers within your model, defining them, assigning them, managing them, and finally reporting on them. From a usability standpoint, this is a bit unique that this is user-driven. So that's something that is talked in the industry an awful lot, is that a user can manage this. A user can simply have an implementation done, the implementation team walks away, and any change that's made or focusing on those changes that are made is actually a manageable process without a lot of overhead, without extending your implementation, without extending your needs to come through. So that's just on the delivery standpoint, and on the management standpoint. Another thing that a user needs and basically has a high need for from an availability standpoint is if you have a request that comes in that says, well, thank you for giving me my cost analysis, thank you for giving my definition of my driver, but what if we needed to, and then you kind of fill in the blank from there. Whatever request that needs to do, you basically have to go through and recreate your profitability process to give a couple of variables, change those variables, and then recycle all the reporting. What this tool allows you to do is give a simple what-if analysis workstream. So scenario modeling is something that we'll talk about a little later. And finally, from an integration standpoint, you ask the question, where does this fit in my organization? How can I manage one more system? What are the team requirements here? How is this deployed? And we'll talk about how this is basically in the technology stack that we have today. It integrates with EPMA. Also the planning, it uses the common workspace module. So you will be actually logging into workspace to do all your modeling and your administration on your model for HPCM. So just moving through here, I just want to throw this out here to kind of talk about the integration side of it. Being fully integrated is important. So you may have some or all of these in your technology stack today from an EPM standpoint of your strategic management, of your strat plans, and how those come through. You want to, strategic finance is a great tool for that. From a planning and forecast standpoint, you might have a planning. You send out your web forms, the data consumption from that side at a very high level, and of course your financial close. So HFM, strategic finance, planning fall directly within the cycle here of profitability management. HPCM from a usability standpoint on the workspace, all of these can be referenced in the workspace. You have a common user interface. So just to kind of round out this cycle here, is that you can commonly integrate between all of your source systems, whether it be Excel, whether it be an Oracle database, directly from a data mart, and we'll talk about that integration side a little later, but basically this technology sits on Essbase. So when you use the engine or the analytics engine of Essbase, then you also gain the power of a proven technology. You have the power of Essbase from an integration standpoint, load rules, all the way through to your management model. So with that being said, I myself am an Essbase guy, so this was basically my first question, so I figured it would be pretty common, and it turns out that it actually is common. So if we can do it in Essbase, then what do we have the need for HPCM? And here are some key differences that I wanted to note as part of this presentation, and also something that we've seen as a common string in the industry and common through HPCM questions. So what is it built for? So something that Essbase is very good at is budgeting and forecasting. The commonality of customization, the use of integrated tools. HPCM drives from all of there. So from a build perspective, how is your approach? So Essbase has a very procedural approach. You have to have a lot of calc scripts, a lot of coding, a lot of special need from a tool set standpoint, which means a lot of turnaround, a lot of maintenance. So basically, if I showed you 28,000 lines of code, it'd be very hard to decode that from however many variables you have. Normally, you have a lot of moving parts. You have a lot of different requirements from an entity standpoint, from a cost center standpoint, and things are constantly moving. So having a model-driven approach allows you to have that flexibility. So this tool actually allows you to automatically generate your calc scripts based on what your assignments are. So from this standpoint, it takes the code out and provides a common user interface to move objects around, and on the back end, the calc script is generated for you. From a knowledge standpoint, this helps because there's no Essbase knowledge required to model. All you need to know is the concepts. To build it, it does itself, and maintain the allocations. The model really uses the ability for a user to not be a highly technical resource. So from a very decentralized model all the way to a centralized model, HPCM provides all the common components that are needed to really pick up a driver and apply it to multiple places. That concept is very foreign in Essbase because if we had one single driver to be applied to multiple cost centers, then that's extra coding that needs to be done. And also extra maintenance, and we need to flow that through. It's very, very hard not only to decode it, but also to report on it. So from a reporting standpoint, we talk a little bit about transparency, we talk about validations, we talk about traceability, the logic itself. So from a reporting standpoint, on the Essbase side, the final results of an allocation basically can be seen in reports that are developed, but it's very, very hard to kind of move backwards and then move forward in the allocation. From a traceability standpoint and transparency standpoint, it's very important for an administrator to have the tools at their fingertips to allow quick visibility into where did it come from, where did it go, and everything in between. So multi-stage, multi-step functionality, the allocations are driven. The HPCM, we'll talk about a little bit, is basically agnostic to the times, different methodologies that you use, whether it be an ABC model, a time allocations model, anything around there. So if you're reporting on units sold that applies across your business, then you can simply pick it up and drop it where it needs to be. And all of this is out of the box. So upon deployment of this model, we have the reporting, we have the analytics, we also have the assignments, and the drivers. So let's go, this is about as technical as I'll get during this presentation. I get a lot of questions on this slide, so feel free to ask them either during this webinar or following this webinar. I really like to get into the back end of this, but I want to quickly breeze through it. So on the back end, we have EPMA is going to be the metadata management here. We have EPM Workspace is where the users are going to be to maintain and change the model design, change your allocations, manage your drivers and definitions. that all fits into Essbase, and so Essbase, upon deploying the calculation scripts, basically Essbase tolerates all of the custom scripting and all the scripting that is basically needed. And from a reporting standpoint, this is good on the training side, and this is what is really nice about this technology stack is you can use SmartView, you can use financial reports, you can use OBIEE, you can use web analysis, and these are reporting tools and reporting screens that your users or end users are already used to, and so are you. So if you have a financial report deck that you really like to present, you can incorporate the data that comes out of HPCM into your deck fairly easily. So let's get into the tool. From a user interface standpoint, I just want to kind of throw this up from a system information. This is kind of the back end, nuts and bolts, just a transition out of the technical side into the actual UI of what you'll be seeing on a day-to-day basis. So it's a common user interface. A quick screenshot will show you that this is a very familiar format, a very familiar screen. We come off of Navigate, we get to the different applications, whether it be consolidations, whether it be your planning applications. You can easily access them all into the workspace. So I want to emphasize this is for the users. They build their allocation model. It's a graphical interface that not only sets up the stages of the allocation, hopping from your cost pool to your logic to your final end state, shows you all the steps in between. It shows you and identifies the drivers. And finally, what's really important about this, and this is heavy importance from an allocation standpoint, is where are my drivers being assigned to, and what are the rules within them that I can define, report on, and move on to those who ask the question. So model maintenance. I say the word ease. I don't want to downplay the word ease, but this HPCM model is truly managed as to be easy. So from either we talk about drag and drop, or we talk about exceptions and inclusions of where these assignments are as easy as clicking a box or not clicking a box for an action to happen. Oracle has done a very good job of basically integrating all of the high-tech need of the business today and moving it to a web-based form for us to use and actually be usable. So just a quick examples of some model maintenance that we'll be doing. You can change and update the assignments, the actual drivers, and use global variables to apply across your entire model. Automatic updates of calc scripts, so you don't have to dive into a calc script when you have a question. You don't have to open them up or kind of cross your fingers and hit calculate. And it also leverages the hierarchies. So we talked about EPMA. That EPMA drives all those hierarchies. So that's a master data management that's important across your Hyperion stack, which you probably have that in place now. The POV Manager. So your point of view. There's an action here that is pretty common. So it's one thing is the what-if capabilities. But there's a certain action of copying data from one scenario to the next and changing your variables. HPCM is very flexible of how you can do this, and it's on demand. It's very easy from the standpoint of setting up a source point of view. So here I have November 2011 in actual, and I want to copy that over to a target point of view. I would actually, in this case, change my scenario to a different scenario, a what if 1 or a what if 2, and I can report the same components that I did in my actuals to give that analysis fairly quickly. You see all the configurations at the bottom. We'll go through a little bit of what those mean. So multiple scenario modeling is important, and actually using that control and having that ability within a tool and allowing the ability to maintain that in a central group. Some driver definitions. So let's talk a little bit about the driver of the capabilities within drivers. So a simple example would be revenue. Revenue comes in and kind of whatever comes in comes out. So that's something we call an even driver. It gives you the ability to do simple calculations, which would be units sold or across a business. So you can define one simple driver. You can see in the screenshots, and I want to kind of reveal this to you to say, well, if this thing automatically generates my calc script, how do I get visibility into what I just generated? So here's something that shows you, it gives you a template, it allows you to see a translated view here, and also you can manage your drivers fairly simply. So from a driver type perspective, any type of driver that you need, HPCM can not only define it, but make it easy for you to use. There's also a custom driver function where you can, if you need to, you can modify if your business has very complex allocations and they are highly visible and is very hard to manage today, and we need some custom calc scripts that need to be run, you can define them as part of your driver type, and it's not a limitation. So this is where Essbase really comes in handy as being the underlying technology, because nothing really goes away. So from that perspective, you have a lot of flexibility. You're not limited to what you can do. This is a differentiator, I think, in the industry compared to different tools. You'll have other tools that are either set in one part of the three that we originally talked about, or the methodology is we're kind of boxed in. So HPCM allows ABC modeling. It allows time estimation modeling. If you have any high definition, percentage allocations, standard cost, even splits before, fixed variable, you can go into on and on and on. This tool allows you to not only move and transition between your business, but also give you the flexibility to utilize from a reporting standpoint and error checking standpoint. So it handles the cost and revenue allocation, so everything can be in one model in one central location. Assignments and validations, moving into basically talking about how, once we deploy everything, once we have our assignments and validation, how are we supposed to know how to see if we did it correct or not? So users can define a single business rule and apply it to multiple allocations. That is very important if you have a single driver and you're applying it to multiple places within your business. So that last bullet here I really want to hit on is provides automatic discovery, resolution, and reporting of reciprocal allocations. This is something that easily gets lost in a local model. This is something that not many people understand. It could be high turnover in your office or a single point of failure. This is one of the things that HPCM really stands upon as allowing you to deploy, allowing you to define your drivers, and then report on them. So quicker turnaround time is very good, especially from a profitability standpoint, because if your costs go up and your revenue remains the same, then we're not as profitable. So this is a bit of an example. This is kind of a push button that I did here, and I combine a couple different reports. What it gives you from a reporting standpoint, it gives you very high visibility. So if you have a defined set of drivers and you have a total amount of drivers, and you're not sure if they were applied or not, you run a simple report that say, give me all the unused drivers. So if you picked one thing and you defined a driver and needed to assign it somewhere and it doesn't have a home, then we can automatically report as part of what's called model validation. From there, you get different categories. You have reports from a tab standpoint. You need to know your missing assignment destination. So, very simply, you have a start, or your source, or your cost pool, and then you have your logic in between, and then you have your assignments, and then you finally have a target of what the destination is. So if you have any missing destinations, if you have any missing assignments, if you have any unused drivers, you can run simple reports within HPCM that give you this out-of-the-box functionality. Stage balancing. Stage balancing is a feature that allows you to really get visibility into the data. So you can see your initial input values, your allocation output by stage, and also your idle. So if something did not get allocated at the end of the cycle, you can quickly see those values present themselves, and this goes to the transparency. Managing your calculations. This is something that goes back to the slide on the comparison between Essbase and HPCM, is that here's a simple example of how you would generate and calculate your calc scripts. So, why is this important? Well, it reduces your time to delivery and your cycle. So if you do find something that doesn't quite jive with what you expected, you can quickly report on it, which turns around your cycle time of having your need to follow up to close, and then right after close, you you have to deliver your profitability results back to your management quickly. So quick turnaround is very important. So auto creation and launch of calculation scripts is important from a management standpoint, management of those calculations, and then it also guides best practice in calc sequencing. So managed calculation function allows you to have good error checking and deployment, and allowing you to make it very easily on your model. Finally, traceability. This is the slide that Excel basically cannot produce. So I kind of jokingly say, try this in Excel to folks that are looking at something like this. So this is a very simple grid, and it shows how HPCM can move either front or backwards through your allocation just by a simple expand or a simple minimizing. So what I want to show on this slide is basically if you move from one side of the allocation out to the other, you can see the breakout of those values. We're going forward and we're also going backward. So this is the heart of transparency. This gives you the ability to trace it back outside in a single integrated tool, and also allows you a very easy graphical understanding of it, with also your low-lying details of easy percentages, and this is all out-of-the-box functionality within the traceability of HPCM. So, to the end here, I want to wrap up to the end of the conversation, and associating your source and your destination within the model, it really needs to understand and have a good control of not only the direction of your cost, but also your revenue flow. And I think HPCM is a good example of that. I want to move into the question and answer section here. I want to remind you, please go ahead and send some questions in. We'll end a little early here and take a few questions. I'm eager to hear what you guys have from a question standpoint, implementation standpoint of HPCM. So I'm going to give it a pause here for a couple seconds, just give you some time to go ahead and send some questions. And for those who have already sent those questions in, I appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and answer some of those. So here's a couple questions. I'll start with the first one. How can HPCM provide a more manageable process of allocations and methodologies? So this question, first off, I sense a little bit of pain in your process. So HPCM, from an ease of use standpoint, really allows you to create a new process, a modified business process of streamlining your reports, easy to track down your drivers, your assignments, and your errors and troubleshooting. So the traditional deployment of an Excel model would, I'll restate it as having a local centralized model that you send out to the broad business, and the broad business sends it back to you for you to report, cross your fingers, hope it's right, and you have no visibility from that standpoint. So then you have to re-engage with that user, or that user re-engages with you, and there's a lot of back and forth. This model clearly allows you to have a very global view over your process and have a very good view from a validation standpoint and reporting. All right, next question here. What are the options of integrating HPCM to a data warehouse or data mart? So from a technical standpoint, this is very important to integrate with your current stack, going back to the slide of your financial close, your strat plan, and also your planning process. So it is operational on top of EPMA, so you can use interface tables, you can integrate it with ODI to populate those interface tables, and from a data standpoint, you have full visibility in Essbase, that technology on the other side, to pull it in via rules files, or you can also use data integration tools to do that with. HPCM is fully compatible with those. Okay, let's move on to some more questions. I want to thank you again for sending them in. Okay, here's a good question. Just going around the integration side, it's just someone asked, can DRM be used effectively with HPCM instead of EPMA? So EPMA is required. So what I've seen is DRM sending an ADS file directly to EPMA, or using DRM's capability of managing those. So EPMA from that standpoint would just be a pass-through. All right, I have a question about, let's see, sift through here. Do HPCM generated calc scripts need to be optimized by an Essbase developer? This is something that kind of jogged my mind at the beginning. So as an Essbase developer, there's a very big importance on efficiency of code, efficiency of the tools that you have available to you, and also the communication of those. So from an optimization standpoint, the Essbase Calc Manager, just to call it out, I hate to be a name dropper, but there's a high expectation of how efficient that code was, and what we saw was we're deploying these calc scripts, and then we had to optimize them back, which basically defeated the purpose. So what we've seen is a very efficient code that's being written. So everything's pretty explicit. Your point of view manager basically defines your fixed statement, everything from the month to the year to the scenario. So it really speeds up the allocation, making them efficient, and everything is fully exposed on the back end. So if you want to modify any of those scripts for a specific purpose outside of the custom, enabling your custom ability to do that, you can certainly dictate this to meet your business needs. Okay. All right. So I appreciate everyone's attendance today. Thank you for spending the time to learn a little bit about HPCM. Like our other series topics, this webinar basically will be made available on our website at www.keyperformanceideas. This concludes our topics, and you feel free to contact Brian Decker directly or myself, and my direct number's there. Please contact us if you have any other information or questions that require us attending to it, and we will surely do that.